Hello, I'm Dr. Frank Cadle with the Get Fit and Be Lean program that I have used to lose over 20% of my body weight in 2021. And this is one of a series of live streams that I do on TikTok, the scheduled live streams that I usually do around 7 p.m. Pacific. And I want to thank you for joining me. I hope we get some followers coming in. Looks like we already got, wow, dozens of viewers. That's quick. I really want to thank you for joining me, and what we're going to talk about today is an article that was published in the Journal of Gerontology at the beginning of this month, or last month, on the effect of meat consumption on lifespan. And this is a really important topic. It's a topic that's been studied in the past pretty aggressively, most notably a study done on Jehovah's Witnesses or Seventh-day Adventists, don't offend anybody, that looked at longevity as related to a small population of vegetarians and meat eaters, and found a huge disparity, about 10 years difference in vegetarians living longer. That population study really fell under a lot of criticism over the past 6-7 years because it tended to be very limited and really didn't look at large populations, large numbers of groups of people, didn't really account for confounding variables. So this most recent study has received some popular press. You can see the study on my Twitter account under Dr. Cadle, and it shows a lot of different results as some of the stuff that's been published in the past. Now, whenever that happens, you really have to take it with a grain of salt. You really have to look at it pretty critically, and there are a number of statements that they made and assumptions that they made that I disagree with, but it's important to understand this was a very mathematically stringent study of large population sizes that accounted for confounding variables like sedentary lifestyles and obesity, and really had some very pertinent criticisms of some studies that have been done in the past. Now, the long and the short of it was they determined that it is actually in the meat-eating populations that you see a nutritional benefit that is conferred into a longer life period. And they looked at both children, people under the age of 5, but primarily at those over the age of 5 and their life expectancy as reported in 175 different countries that had enough data to be evaluated on these criteria that they selected. And they did bimodal linear regression studies and studies that showed some pretty complex plotting, but that was really quite dramatic as far as demonstrating that there appears to be a nutritional component to meat consumption that actually results in longevity and increased lifetime. And the reason that this study caught my eye is really because it's slightly inconsistent with some of these early studies, but those early studies have come under some criticism. And I've put a link to this article if you want to try and wade through it. It's pretty dense. But I really choose these kind of articles primarily because I find that particularly in the diet industry and the nutritional industry, there tends to be a choice of demonization of different types of food. Either the carnivores say that you shouldn't eat kale because it has defensive chemicals, or the vegetarians say that you shouldn't eat meat, or the what do they call it? Not Whole Foods, but anyway, real food people say that you shouldn't eat anything that's processed, and the people that are processed say, well, this allows your food to last longer, which increases nutritional availability. It can get very confusing for someone who's just trying to eat right. And So with the Get Fit and Be Lean program, I have personally focused primarily on portion control because I think that's where the largest amount of problem lies for people, particularly in the Western world in the US, where most of my followers are. The problem is we're eating too much or getting too many calories, and we're not moving enough. We're not having enough exercise. And so that's why I use these studies as the basis of the Get Fit and Be Lean program, which I have demonstrated all throughout 2021 can be used by anyone. I was working throughout this time. I've got a family. I haven't sworn off any kinds of foods. I really haven't undergone any dramatic, 1,100 calorie starvation periods. I haven't engaged in any fasting. And yet I was able to lower my blood pressure by 20 millimeters of mercury, to lower my cholesterol by more than 20 points. I was able to drop more than 5 inches off my waist. I've gotten off my heartburn, reflux medication. And I did all of this without any medication and without any surgery and the dangerous risks that surgery entails and the cost. And, the cost is a big deal to me. I really don't see any benefit in telling somebody, well, go out and spend $3,000 on a life cycle or whatever that's going to be recalled. And, some of this equipment's being recalled, the Fitbit, the Peloton. People are ending up with $5,000 coat hangers that they throw clothes on every day. And that's not a good investment. And if you can't, establish just a simple 10 or 20 minute routine every other day for 3 or 4 days a week, you may not be the best investment to go out and spending huge amounts of money and signing a contract with a monthly deduction from your bank account, particularly as inflation is climbing and we're seeing such high gas prices. I really think that having a simple thing that people can do. I started this during the pandemic and wasn't really interested in going to a gym and trying to work out with a mask on. I wanted something that could be adapted to almost anybody's lifestyle. And that's why I focus on these studies of the carbohydrate limiting diets and the studies on vegetarianism. Now, I want you to understand, I know that not all vegetarians eat just because they want to live longer. It may seem that way. But the truth is that a lot of them do it from a philosophical standpoint or an ecological standpoint. And I don't have any problem with that. I just like meat, so I'm going to continue to eat meat, and I make it a part of my application of the Get Fit and Be Lean program, which is much more focused on portion control and satiety, trying to make sure that I am satisfied when I finish eating. So I really want to thank, wrong. All right, clockwise. Thank you very much for just throwing out a single word rebuttal without the references, some of which I have in my own bibliography that demonstrate the benefits of the vegetarian lifestyle. I think you can see when I start out by saying that the Get Fit and Be Lean program is focused on 2 servings of raw or steamed vegetables at lunch, 2 servings at dinner. You can see me eating grapefruit for breakfast. You can see me eating oatmeal for breakfast. I'm not some kind of anti-vegan carnivore who thinks we should only eat meat, but I do think that people eat what they're going to eat, and to try and tailor a program that starts off with some dramatic elimination of an entire food group flying in the face of people's cultural upbringings, I don't think you're helping people. And I think the increase in obesity that we see in America, even as vegetarianism has really taken hold and is definitely practiced by a significant portion of the population, demonstrates that it's not the pathway to being fit and being lean. So to say that that's the only way that you can do it, that's what I would say is wrong. Clockwise, but thanks for the comment. I do appreciate it. Now, as far as calories, I think portion control and limitation are going to obviously result in decreased caloric intake. I'm not really a calorie counter. I don't see that as something I'm going to sustain over months and years. It just makes my head hurt trying to think all that stuff and look it all up and figure it out for every meal. I'd much rather focus on portion sizes. Now, the difficulty with that is that because of thermogenic adaptation, because of my body's decrease in my basic metabolic rate in response to caloric deprivation, I have to eat smaller portions now than I did 14 months ago when I started this process. And that is a difficult adjustment to make, but it's one I can make. I made this and achieved so far the many things that I've wanted to achieve. And so I think that it becomes a part of a process rather than another dramatic alteration in lifestyle and food intake.